I've asked Danny to give us just a quick, and it's got to be really quick, description of what the Best Practices Committee is.
Good evening. Years ago, the Best Practices Committee was started because of complaints like this. And it was started to help the community address practices to the county. Address complaints to the county. Now, real quickly, it has happened, and it does work. It may take a long time, but it does work. I'm going to be here all night. I have cards with me. We can talk after, but I'd like to get the questions answered as soon as we can. Thanks.
Please give him a big round of applause, because he works really hard for y'all. Now, I have a missing microphone, and here it is. So we're going to get straight away to the questions. But before we do, I just wanted to say again, if you have questions, please write them down on a card, and either Rosa or Mark hold them up, and we'll come grab them. So Rosa, we have one here. And Minnie Lee has been kind enough to volunteer with us and do the questions, so I can have a break. So please give Minnie a round of applause. She left her husband tonight to help us. One final thing I want to say, in fairness to our panel, they cannot discuss your personal case in public. There are laws that do not allow them to do that. So if you've submitted a question about your case, we cannot read it out loud and it will not be answered for your protection as well as theirs. And also, we're videotaping this meeting, so just be real clear, it's not that we don't want to ask your question. They've committed to stay after and you can speak to them privately, but they are not going to answer questions about your particular case. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's get started. The first question is, what does the Children of Color Task Force do?
The Children of Color Task Force does a variety of things. The first thing that we've done is just really looked at what the trends are in our data. What is the reality of who's in our system, what happens at what decision points, how long families stay in our system. We've gotten some court orders for them to do some case reviews to see if they could follow the kind of train of thinking that social workers were engaged in when they made certain types of decisions. They've given us some recommendations for strategies. They have participated in revising some of our protocols that have directly addressed issues that were identified through that committee of concern. So they really act in an advisory and partnering capacity with the agency. Community people are welcome to be involved in that committee, as well as our internal staff.
Thank you. The next question is, why and where can I get help for my grandchild? Where can I get help for my grandchild? He can't walk. Sure I can. Well, where can I get help for my grandchild? He can't walk and needs medical treatment. I'm 65 years old and need help also. Please help.
That's, a little more complex situation. It really depends on what all of the variables are. One of the things that we do encourage families to do, families who can support themselves and each other. We have this all the time where grandparents kind of end up raising children. If they can do it without the formal child welfare system, that is always preferable. They can certainly call us for some information and referral sources based on the situation, whether or not there need to be linkages to places like regional center or disability resources. Sometimes people don't know what to apply for. We can also help link with that. And also too, that kind of call is common for us to refer to differential response programs.
Thank you. This question is in regards to neglect. The question is, medical services, how do you deal with the Christian Science problem?
As my attorney would always say, it depends. It really depends on the level of risk that's presented. If certainly there were a life-threatening concern, depending on the age of the child and the child's ability to consent, we may intervene. It's not always a given. We really have to look at the situation with all the facts presented.
Thank you. This is a two-part question. What new steps are going to be put in place to make sure that DFCS workers from top to bottom are going to be accountable and responsible for their actions and attitudes to the public? The second part of the question is, where is the accountability going to be if our children are not represented fairly?
So the first question, I think, is a fair one, about how we hold ourselves accountable. And part of that is, by making sure that we stay available to the community, that we hear the community's concern, and that we respond to it. We make ourselves available. We are taking some very tough criticism, but some feedback that we need to hear. And, our goal is to, constantly improve what we're doing. We're also utilizing experts out there to help us better engage with community because it's a community issue. We can't do it alone. And so one of the things that we're really recognizing is that we really need to reach out and let others help us do this work. And then can you repeat the second part of the question?
Where is the accountability going to be if our children are not represented fairly?
So that's a broader systemic issue. And when I hear not represented fairly, I'm thinking of a couple of different things. I'm thinking about whether or not there are people out there that can be the voice for those children, and certainly we are bringing in additional people to help be that voice. The other piece for me speaks to kind of the legal representation, and it's really important for families to feel comfortable with letting us know if their needs aren't being met in that regard. I think the Ombuds has been a great source of support for that because unlike us, who have really no authority over other attorney groups, and neither does he, but he's somebody who can act independently and kind of give some feedback as he does to us because it's a systemic issue.
Minnie, and I wanted to just ask DA Silva and also you, Ms. Medina, could you talk a little bit about the Law Foundation that has children advocates, attorneys that work with the children?
Just a final note on the accountability issue. Not every county, in fact, the number of counties in California with an external ombuds function are shrinking. I think that the fact that Santa Clara County has an office of the ombuds is a huge measure of accountability. It is the hallmark of a county that says that it is confident enough to have an external function helping to look at complaints, and that's a big measure of accountability.
Thank you. The next question is that's right, excuse me.
So I do know that are you talking about with raising legal advocates for children and youth? Okay, so the legal advocates for children and youth have a contract to represent the children in dependency court. So the children in dependency court actually have an attorney there present representing their views and their position, which is distinct from the attorney which is there on behalf of the county, and is distinct from the attorney who is present who is representing the parents.
So if there's anyone, whoever wrote that question, if you have a child who needs help, please see Ms. Silva afterwards and she can help you with that information. So we want to make sure you all leave here not just with a lot of information, but resources as well.
Thank you. Our next question is 3 parts. If DFCS workers do not respond or act in a timely manner and are properly resulting in harm to the child and family's well-being, 1, how do we complain? 2, who do we complain to? And 3, where do we appeal the denial?
Okay, so there, for the first part about how to complain, there are a variety of different ways to complain. The paths are pretty open. One is with our internal complaint resolution process, and that number is a complaint line, and the supervisor who mans that is not somebody who is in the reporting line of any social worker in our department, and that's 975-5352. Another avenue is, which is the most preferable, is really if you're not getting a response from your social worker, please try to call the supervisor for that person. If the supervisor's not there, the manager. No, we're not asking you to, play hot potato with people for a while. We know that, for people who have issues, they want their issues addressed right away. But we do try to get our workers to, respond in a reasonable amount of time. When that's not possible, those workers are accountable to supervisors, and supervisors are accountable to managers. If you go through the social work supervisor, who is the complaint resolution person, that person actually, the reporting line goes up to the director's office. So it goes through the Administrative Support Bureau to the director's office, so that ultimately accountable to me. And then, there's always, if you think that there is something that you really feel, I'm not sure I'm ready to risk, or I'm very frustrated, I want to seek an alternative way to resolve the issue, then you can always contact the Office of the Ombudsperson.
And I will say, with respect to that denial, I think the third component, that ultimately, when a case comes to the Office of the Ombuds, pursuant to the presentation, we try to work at the lowest level: social worker, supervisor, manager. Sometimes things get escalated then up to Ms. Medina, sometimes even to Dr. Sessions. I suppose finally, if there were just no resolve, although I can say that this hasn't occurred, but ultimately the final arbiter as to an issue would be Dr. Smith, the county executive.
Thank you. The next question is, what do you do to enhance the self-esteem of children, particularly girls? Do you make use of role models? If so, how?
We absolutely try to use role models whenever possible, and I think our social workers particularly, that is a piece of the work that we do with youth, to really try to find the right services for youth. So it really is dependent on that child. We also, make use of child advocates. So child advocates are assigned to youth who are going through our dependency system, and they have frequent contact with our youth and also help identify other things that will help enhance youth's self-esteem. And so we really try to select age-appropriate, culturally relevant services that meet the needs of that individual child.
Thank you. The next question looks like it's also addressed to you, Ms. Medina. Does DFCS refer parents to the Parent Project?
We have not yet. In fact, we've just actually become aware of that resource ourselves, so that is something that we have made a commitment to, also trying to determine which families are more appropriate for the Parent Project. But at this point, this is something that for us was about a month old, so it's a new, another tool in our toolkit.
DA Silva, could you talk a little bit about what the Parent Project is? I know a lot of us don't know what that is.
I addressed it very briefly. What it is it's a 12-week intense course. It's offered one night a week on a weeknight. It's offered 3 hours the first 6 weeks. The first 6 weeks, the project is co-taught by law enforcement officers. They address specific instances of misconduct